Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm going to talk about what next very directly and try and be as concrete as possible, because I think the cooperation between India and EU has a long and rich history, and we're building upon sort of existing experiences. And if we really want to talk about what next, given the post-2015 world, I would like to start with some very specific asks, possibly. And Henriette sitting here, maybe she'll sort of respond to some of them as well. So the first thing is sort of about strengthening institutional partnerships. We know that the challenge, the climate change challenge, is not going to be met by one country, one type of institution, one type of actor. We need collaboration, and we need collaboration which cuts across these different divides of science, policy, and practice. And this has been something that we've been trying to do a lot in the bilateral cooperation, the Indo-German bilateral cooperation, and also have been sort of involved in Indo-European bilateral cooperation as well in the past. So if you really think about changing the tenor of cooperation, it has to go beyond science-science collaboration and actually really now talk about how do you bring the lessons from science into policy and practice at a speed which is required right now, given the urgency of the challenge. Because, well, Keynes said it almost 100 years ago, that it's going to take 80 years for my sort of research to get into fruition. We can't afford that kind of time lag anymore. So if we really want to actually translate the cutting-edge science into practice and cutting-edge science into policy, we need system integrators. That's the term that I've been using sort of in conversations several times with a lot of people. We need system integrators. This EESL is a great example of a system integrator. We need system integrators in a lot of other spaces. The Bureau of Resource Efficiency was proposed earlier in the day today, and I think that's going to be another system integrator. So we really need to identify those kinds of institutions which translate science into practice and policy, and scaling up. There are several examples of scaling up which are available in Europe. And sort of Germany has this Energie Vendor program, which has been sort of sold globally pretty much. India has a fantastic example of scaling up as well. So if we really want to focus on our attention on certain issues, it has to be about identifying system integrators which allow for scaling up. The second point I want to make is about mainstreaming adaptation at the subnational level, going down to the level of maybe districts and panchayats as well. Here, again, the European Union has fantastic examples. Not only in Germany, but also in other parts of the EU, there have been a lot of actions at the subnational level, at the city level, about mainstreaming adaptation, about integrating disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation. And I think this is critical. Through a European Union-funded project, we actually piloted mainstreaming of adaptation at the local level, where we brought in expertise from Germany through this Klimalotse, the climate navigator approach, which German cities are experimenting with. And I think this is something that we would really like to sort of, I think it has to be pushed, it has to be mainstreamed, it has to be scaled up at the sort of national level as well. Now, I think the third point is about technology, and this is where I would sort of like to, I would end with that. When you start talking about technologies, we really need to think about how do you seed a technology in this environment, which is very different from what sort of where the technology comes from. Now, it's one possibility is to actually have business-to-business engagement. And this is where the SME sort of examples, which Seema talked about earlier, how do you actually start supporting sort of small and medium enterprises in India for enhancing their resource efficiency, or lowering their carbon footprint? But that has been attempted for the last 25 years. These cleaner production approaches have been implemented in this country for more than 25 years. What is missing? And again, the point is, how are institutions which are geared for scaling up these approaches, mainstreaming them in the policy domain, also react to newer sort of approaches for resource efficiency? And I think this is where we really need to find institutional partnerships which go beyond the obvious of sort of a bilateral exchange between small and medium enterprises in Europe and small and medium enterprises in India. We really need to see what kind of institutions have been supporting the small and medium enterprises in Germany or in sort of other parts of the European Union, and how can such institutions be supported, strengthened. So the broad sort of red thread that I'm trying to establish during these sort of, well, these 3 or 4 points that I've talked about is about capacity development. We really need to invest in capacity development, not only at the sort of national level, but also at the sub-national level. And there, I think I'd like to compliment the work that is being done by Dr. Gupta with these knowledge centers, the climate change knowledge centers in multiple states. The NABARD colleague also mentioned a lot of these NAFCC projects. What about a network of these successful project implementers? What about creating a network of these knowledge centers? This is going to be, and linking them with European networks. It could be done through Horizon 2020. Ms. Friedrichs talked about that. But it's also about getting the right kind of expertise from Europe and the right kind of experiences from Europe, and so that there is cross-fertilization of ideas at an equal footing. There is a lot to learn from India for the European Union as well. And I think this is something that we need to establish, sort of also understand that it's a partnership of equals, and we would really learn a lot if we believe that networks could inform the adaptation of the energy experiences from India also into the European Union. And I would stop there. Thank you so much.